Hello, I don't know about you, but when the holidays come around, I bake a lot. And one of the things that I bake quite a bit are pies because they're flexible. You can use whatever you have. You can make apple pies, pumpkin pies, pecan pies, whatever you have, you can turn into a pie. So today I'm just going to show you my basic pie crust. It has just a few ingredients and it's flexible, which is what I love. So you start with 2 cups of flour, half a cup of powdered sugar, and 3/4 of a cup cubed cold butter. And that's basically it. Now you can change things up a little bit. I've added ground almonds or ground hazelnuts just to add a little bit more texture, but this is the basic. So you're going to start with the 2 cups of flour, half a cup of powdered sugar, and 3/4 of a cup of the cubed cold butter. Now, some people make this in a food processor. I prefer a pastry cutter because it's old school and it's easy and you can kind of feel what it is you're doing. But basically what you want to do is you want to cut that butter into the flour. And you just want to break up that butter until you have sort of pea-sized cubes of butter in there. It doesn't take very long. You can see the different sizes of the butter in there. I know people have a lot of different techniques on how they add liquid to their crust, and there's a whole scientific reason why you use alcohol, hard alcohol, in addition to water. Some people use ice cold water. I don't. So I use vodka, but again, with my use whatever you have attitude, I've also substituted gin when I don't have vodka. I've put in apple brandy or Calvados when I'm making an apple pie. I've even used rum for a banana cream pie. So it's really whatever you have is what you can use. So you just alternate. It's 2 tablespoons of vodka and 2 tablespoons of water, or whatever combination you feel like using. So I'm going to start with the vodka. I'm going to pour in 1 tablespoon of vodka and 1 tablespoon of water. And I'm just going to take a wooden spoon and sort of mix it together. What you want to do is you want to make the dough come into a ball that you can form and then chill. So that is still pretty dry, so I'm going to put in my 2nd tablespoon of vodka and my 2nd tablespoon of water. So it is the correct consistency when you can kind of press it with your wooden spoon and it'll form a ball. So then I just take my hands, this might still be a little too dry, and I turn that out onto the workspace. Might still be a little too dry. And then you just want it to come together and add a little bit more. You don't want to be too rough with it because it'll get rubbery, but just enough to form this ball. And you want to keep this flakiness because that's going to add the flakiness to your finished crust. Okay, once you can incorporate all those pieces of the dough and flour, it can still be a little bit messy. You're just going to chill that for 30 minutes minimum, And you can wrap this. I put it in the freezer. You can put it in the fridge. You can put it in plastic wrap, wax paper. I prefer beeswax wrap because I don't like to use plastic very often, but you just wrap it up. Press it down into a disc and let that chill in your freezer for 30 minutes. Okay, while the dough chills, I thought we'd take a second and just talk about a couple of little fun facts. So in the Middle Ages in Europe, pies were actually not sweet. They were savory and they were often filled with meat. And then a second fact that I learned when I was researching this is, what is America's favorite pie? And I guess there's a reason why the saying is as American as apple pie. That comes up as almost everyone's favorite. So I'm curious to know, what is your favorite pie? So put your favorite pie in the comments and click like if you like this video. Okay, after your crust has chilled in the fridge or freezer for at least 30 minutes, you're going to want to take it out. And then we're just going to roll out this crust. This is actually going to be a par-baked crust, which means that the crust is baked ahead of time and then filled. So this would be a crust appropriate for something like a banana cream pie or a coconut cream pie. So the pie crust is cooked and then the filling is put into it. If you are creating a pie that the crust and the filling need to be baked together, this is a different process, but we'll talk about that. So once your crust has chilled, you're just going to lightly flour your workspace. And then put your pie crust, pie dough there. Get a rolling pin. You're going to lightly flour that. You can use any rolling pin that you like. Some people like the French ones that are tapered. I like a single diameter rolling pin. I've also used a wine bottle in a pinch if I'm at a house or somewhere that doesn't have a rolling pin. So it's anything that you can easily roll your dough out. And so you just want to start in the middle and roll out to the sides. And you're basically creating a circle. So you can flip it over and just get as uniform a thickness as you can. And while I'm doing this, my oven is preheating at 425 because I'm going to par-bake the crust. So you can press in to create that smooth edge and then go back to rolling. So you can see here it's not quite circular, so then I'm just going to push it back to a circle till I get the thickness and the shape and size that I want. If it starts to get a little sticky, you can flour it. This is okay the way it is. You don't want it to stick to the counter, so you can kind of pick it up every now and then, put some flour on it if you need to. Okay. So there's a lot of ways you can transfer your crust once you have it rolled out to your pie pan. Some people are talented enough, I am not, to kind of roll your crust onto your rolling pin and roll it into your pan. I typically roll it into quarters and then I transfer that into my pan and then unroll it. So roll the half out and then lay it out so it covers the whole dish. And then you just kind of want to lay it in your pie pan. You want to have a lot of overhang to create the crust rim. Kind of press it in there. And then you can just pull and trim the excess dough. Off of the edge. Right here? Okay. So I normally work next to myself. Okay, so you have the edges of the crust roughly trimmed, and then you can just create a design. So for this, I'm going to take my index finger and my index and my thumb, and I'm just going to crimp the edges to create a smooth top. Doesn't have to be pretty. That's one method. Another method I've seen is to just have it flat and then use the tines of a fork to create that design. Actually, you want to do it over here. Okay, so you have this pie crust that is now shaped and put into your pie pan. And like I said, this is one that's going to be par baked, which means we're going to bake this crust ahead of filling it. And when you do that, you don't want it to bubble up, because where it bubbles, it's going to crack. So you just take the tines of a fork and you can just sort of create air vents in here. So it looks like that. And then in this case, again, to keep it from bubbling up, I take a piece of parchment paper. I lay that in my crust, and if you have pie weights, you can use that. I just use beans or dried rice, and you just sprinkle that in your crust. That's just going to hold the paper down. And then I'm going to place this in the oven at 425 degrees for about 20 minutes. So after your pie crust has par baked for 20 minutes, you're going to pull it out. So that process has baked the outside and sides of the crust. I'm just going to remove the paper and the rice and put it back in the oven for just 10 minutes to make sure that the bottom is done so you don't have a soggy crust. It goes back in the oven for 10 minutes. So if you noticed when I rolled out the pie crust that we put in the oven, I had a little bit of extra. And I just wanted to show you something that you can do that's a little fun decoration. So it's just the leftover pie crust. Lightly flour your workspace and your rolling pin again, just like you did the first time. You're just going to roll it out, sort of like a rolled cookie. Just a way to use up your pie crust so it doesn't go to waste. So I'm just going to use a star cookie cutter. You can use whatever shape you want. And I guess I'll just get two out of this. And I'm just going to put that on a parchment lined cookie sheet. And just bake that up for a little decoration on top of my pie. Okay, so after you have rolled out your crust, shaped it, put it in your pie pan, you've par baked it for 20 minutes with the liner so that it doesn't bubble up, then you've taken out the paper, put it back in the oven without that so you can brown the bottom. I put it in for another 10 minutes. This is what you have, a fully baked pie crust that's ready for filling. So for this one, I'm going to let it cool completely, and then I plan to fill it with a chocolate cream filling. And there you have it, my easy pie crust. You can fill this again with anything that doesn't need to be baked. I will do a different video with a pie crust where you bake the filling alongside the pie. But in any case, this is my process for making a par-baked pie crust. And I hope that you will subscribe to Culinary Cam and see more videos that we have coming up. And if you like this and found it helpful, please click like. And again, in the comments, you can leave me your favorite pie recipe. I'd love to hear from you. I hope this inspires you to get into your kitchen, using what ingredients you have, and make a delicious mess.